Getting clear on your core values is going to help to determine the standards at which you live by, which then influence your behaviors that absolutely shape your habits. Being an asshole to yourself, it doesn't give you anything of value. Like, it literally does nothing for you. That's good. That's positive. That's supportive. It 1000% tears at your self-respect. To have boundaries, just as is, like, period, is saying to yourself, I respect you. I respect myself, so I have these boundaries. That's how tightly woven respect and boundaries are. Life is going to continue to give you opportunities to show yourself how much do you really respect yourself. And every time that opportunity comes up, you have a choice of how you want to show up. This is the Roxanne Show. Get ready. It's time to rise. I'm so excited about today's topic because it's actually interesting that I've yet, in all the episodes on this podcast, I've yet to create a podcast episode just on self-respect. You have, if you've been listening to my podcast, I love you. Welcome back. And if you're new, I love you too, and welcome here. But I've spoken about self-respect several times. It's impossible for me to not talk about self-respect in many different episodes because there's so much crossover. So anytime, I'm talking about self-love, self-confidence, self-trust, these very, very powerful and important attributes, you cannot also not talk about self-respect. But in today's episode, I'm going to tease out why self-respect is really vital and important to operate your life with, for you to have a strong sense of center, a strong sense of self, and ultimately create a life where you are truly thriving. Also share some ideas and sort of tactics on how you can cultivate more self-respect, stronger levels of self-respect. So let's just start with why self-respect is so important. Now, I'm sure on the surface, everybody is pretty much aware that this is probably a really important attribute / quality that we all want to be operating our lives with. But truly, why? Why? First and foremost, it's this relationship that you have with yourself, right? It's sort of like a love letter to yourself that says, I am worthy. I have inherent value just being me as is, right? Not meaning like it's not contingent on external validation or, any kind of credit coming from the outside. You are able to recognize yourself authentically. Self-respect, strong levels of self-respect really helps you to create more focus in your life in areas that matter. So you know how to prioritize a lot stronger. You're going to have strong, high quality, let's use that word, that's really important, high quality behaviors, habits. You're going to have stronger boundaries. You are definitely going to know what your core values are, and you're going to be more devoted and dedicated to those core values, right? So if you kind of reverse that and tie all of that, so someone who doesn't have strong levels of self-respect, first of all, you don't even know yourself really, right? You're not able to stand in who you truly are because you don't really have a sense of who you are. You are probably going to be someone who's operating with low-level behaviors, low-level standards, low-level habits, right? They all kind of work together. You probably don't have strong boundaries, right? And it's really going to create this inner world where your worthiness, your self-esteem, your confidence, and certainly your trust, self-trust, and self-love is going to be very, very weak. And I don't want that for you. You don't want that for you. So this self-respect piece is super important to keep very activated and to have it very dialed in. So how do we start to develop more self-respect? There's several ways to do this. I'm going to point out some of the ways that I find to be the most effective in my life and how I've seen it been very supportive to women that I coached and mentor. But first and foremost, and this might not be a simple thing to do, but it is something that has to come first. You have to truly get to know your authentic self, and you have to choose your authenticity over everything else. So here's a kind of buttoned up, simple way I like to put this with your authentic self. What do you truly want to say yes to? And what do you truly want to say no to? Like, what can you truly stand in versus not? You operate from that, the true yeses, the true no, right? When you can do that, you're positioning yourself. You don't even realize it maybe at first, but you are actually reinforcing more respect for yourself. Because let me paint an example of you not doing that. Let's just say because you're so in need, you want external validation in some area of your life so desperately that you decide to prioritize someone else's idea, expectation, need or want over what is true for you inside, right? And there's so many different examples of what this can look like. So I'm not going to go through all of them, but the bottom line is you feel something inside that's different from something that, you know, you're being asked to, or you're being pressured by, or you think would be good for you to do and show up from the external. So what you do is you betray your authentic self in that moment, and you do whatever it is that's going to give you that external validation, or kind of go with the flow, this whatever. Like, just basically bottom line is you left yourself to go along with something outside of you. That is going to fuck you up every time when it comes to self-respect. Like, you're not going to feel good about yourself, even if it's something that you don't feel acutely, right? It's not an immediate hit. Trust me when I tell you that your subconscious is aware that you just betrayed yourself, and it can happen. So if this is something that maybe you're kind of feeling right now, like, oh shit, listen, we're all here to learn and to grow. So anytime I point out anything, let me just insert this. Anytime I point out an example of sort of what we don't want to be doing, or what's not good for us or great for us to thrive, or any of that, I want to say, first of all, I probably know through experience, which is why I'm able to create that example. Second of all, and most importantly, really, is that we're all fucking humans. We're all here to get messy, to learn and to grow. What we're not here to do is to beat ourselves up and judge ourselves over every fucking thing that we're doing, because you cannot learn and judge at the same time, right? So it's really important to just kind of keep that in mind as we move along through our life, and give yourself more permission to be human. This kind of comes in later, even with compassion, but let me get back on track to where I was. So authenticity, your authentic self, getting to know and to stand with your authentic self is at the top of the list when we want to think about how to cultivate more self-respect, right? So this is not an overnight process. It's a practice for the rest of your life, right? At every opportunity that you get to choose your authenticity over external validation, being accepted, any of the above, an opportunity, quote unquote, that you think is going to do something for you, but inside it doesn't, there's like a disconnect and a misalignment there. But when you choose to say no to that quote unquote opportunity, when you choose to stand with yourself and not go for the, validation or whatever, any of that shit, you are absolutely putting a stripe on your self-respect belt, period. And I promise you, like, the more you do this, the more, one day you look back and you will feel it, but you actually have proof too of like how you stood with yourself. So number 2, and this is a huge one, And this is where it gets cool because the crossover in self-love and self-confidence and self-trust is so happening here with the self-respect piece, right? Number 2, and this is something that I deeply stand in, be of your word. You got to be of your word. If you're someone who talks and doesn't back your shit up, like not just to people outside of you, not like, oh, you tell somebody out here, I'm going to do something, but just to your own self. Your word has to mean something to you first and foremost. It has to mean something to you. When you don't stand true to your word, first of all, you're going to start tearing down the respect. We don't want that, right? We're trying to build it up. Also, this is really important here, but you are teaching yourself that you cannot be trusted. You can't trust yourself. Why should you? You shouldn't trust yourself. If you say you're going to do something, you don't do it. If somebody says they're going to do something to me and they don't follow through, why would I trust that they would? You know? Trust is a deeper subject, so it's not that black and white. And I'm not trying to just, make it that black and white. But this is a truth that if you are repeatedly saying you're going to do things and then you don't do it, you are reinforcing, whether it's conscious, certainly subconsciously, that you actually cannot trust yourself. You have no follow through. And that is also going to tear down your levels of self-respect. So if we want to build our self-respect, we need to follow through on our word. This is where integrity comes in. I'll give you a quick story. It's so funny. I really respect myself for this. There's a lot of things that I do in my life where and being a writer, I'm constantly in this reflective mode with myself, and self-inquiry. I'm able to observe myself at a very, very high level. And a lot of times it's these like kind of smaller things where I could easily brush what I'm about to share with you, under the rug, because there's really no harm in me not following through on my word. However, because I value my word so deeply that when I say I'm going to do something, I'm fucking doing it. And here's the example. I was on vacation. I'm just going to keep this super simple, a couple months ago. And there was where I was staying, the valet was so amazing. Those boys were just radical and I fucking loved them, and hard workers, just good guys. And I remember, when I was leaving, one of them was like, if you don't mind just giving a review and mentioning my name, and like it does something with management. And I'm like, and I remember this like a snapshot moment in my mind. And I looked at him and I said, I got you. Right now, I don't know when this episode comes out, but I will tell you as of right now, this vacation, this was already, I don't know, like 4 months ago or something like that. Right. And just this last weekend, I'm organizing a lot of things in my home and I'm just getting things ready, big, busy week, travel, business and all this. And I have the card that he gave me. I kept that card, right, with his name and the TripAdvisor, whatever. And, there's a lot that I have on my plate as a constant by design. So but sitting down and signing in and creating and writing this thing, like, it's a task, right? But I looked at that card, and this is not the first time I thought about it. I've thought about it, right? And I just had not had a real moment to get to it. And I can tell you right now that even in this moment, in this example, over this weekend, it's not like I had all this time, but I looked at that card and I was like, and I just remember that moment where I looked at him in the eyes and I said to him, I got you. When I fucking say those words to anybody, and especially to myself, and that's such an important piece right there, I need to know without a fucking shadow of a doubt that means something. that there's going to be follow through. I am not going to be that girl that looked in your eyes and said, I got you, and then never followed through. There's no fucking way. And the piece that's so important to pull on there is it's not just because of what he is going to think about me. Sure, that does matter. Like, you know what? I love that now, by the way, because I did do the review and I did, I followed through and I sent him a message and just said, here you go, it's done, and the piece, yes, I do care and value that person can say, wow, that, she actually followed through. I think that's actually very important. I'll pull on this for a minute because we need to know that there are people like that in life. We need to be able to trust in others. That's so fucking important. And I want to be that person, not just for myself, but for others, to the best that I can be. But the part to me is actually the most important. You hear this all the time, like, oh, you're the director, you're the actor, you're, the performer, like this kind of poetic way of talking about our life being the story. Yeah, you're all that. You're directing it, you're, performing, you're writing it. And guess what? You're the fucking audience too. You are the audience. I'm watching myself. I have a higher sense of this observation, just like I said, because I'm a writer and because I'm I've been doing this my whole life, this writing piece. And so when you write, it's a heightened level of observation, right? However, we are all watching ourselves. Our subconscious is paying fucking attention, even when you're not aware of it consciously. So me knowing, back to the example here, that I have strong, dedicated, rock solid follow through on my word when I give it, not just to others, but to myself. Of course, I'm going to respect myself a lot more. And I'm certainly going to fucking trust myself more. I should trust myself because I follow through. And this also brings in more confidence here, right? Like confidence in just how I show up in myself, in my ability. I mean, there's a lot of angles in the confidence sphere that I can pull on. But do you see why this is so important? The backing your shit up with, from your words to action. And look, sometimes, in my own life, using myself as an example, again, I might say like, oh, I'm going to do this tomorrow, but maybe it actually doesn't get done till next week. The point is that if you put your word to it, fucking make it happen at some point, whether it's in that time frame or, if it has to be in that time frame, then yes, it has to be. But if you do have more leeway, fine. Just make sure that it gets done, right? This is really important. And it is, to me, it's a practice. And I know, there's a lot of people in a lot of different situations that, you might to say like, oh, I'm going to go to the gym, or, oh, I'm going to, you want to create these healthy behaviors and habits, and maybe there's backtrack there. And, that's where guilt and shame starts to come in. I mean, this is certainly how we pull away from respecting ourselves. And so wherever you can create more action to word in your life and start putting that repetition in to where it gets stronger and stronger, to where then you can take that and move it in other areas of your life, focus on that then. Just make sure that this, and I can't do this for you, and nobody can, nor should anybody need to. This has to matter to you, this piece that I'm talking about. You backing your shit up, you being of your word. That has to mean more to you than anybody can fucking make mean to you. Do you know what I'm saying? So that for me is, it's authenticity, like choosing your authentic self first, and then it's being of your word. That is also so vital when it comes to cultivating more self-respect. Number 3 is getting very clear on your core values. I feel like I've talked a lot about core values recently in episodes, but I mean, it really is so important just for you to know who the fuck you are and to create a life that you really, that has like rich meaning and value to you and purpose and substance. I mean, your values are shaping your decisions. What we value, we make time for. What we value, we make time for. Literally, your decisions are being measured to your values. If you don't have clarity on your values, then decision making also gets very flimsy. But when you're clear on what your values are, you can start to prioritize everything in your life with so much more focus and so much more directional energy, right? When you know what your core values are and you're able to show up to keep them top shelf in your life, this action right here is also going to help you cultivate more self-respect, right? It's just you're operating with so much integrity, and integrity and self-respect really go hand in hand. To me, they're like made of one, really. The more that you operate with integrity, the more respect you're going to be able to cultivate for yourself. The more actions that you take that produce more self-respect, the more that you're functioning with integrity. You know what I mean? They go hand in hand. So if you don't know what your core, and when I say your core values, I'm putting a lot of emphasis on yours, not the values that you think you should value, not what you've adopted from the external world, society, parents, whatever. Like, what do you really value? And then you show up and you do the work to top shelf, keep those top shelf, to keep them prioritized, to keep them healthy, to keep them loved up on, so that they can be these really activated pillars in your life. And they should be, because they're your core values. They matter to you, right? We don't want them to be flimsy or to be undernourished. No. Another reason why your core values, getting very clear on your core values, is so important is because when you get clarity on your values, it's going to influence your personal standards, your behaviors, and then your habits. They all go together, right? They really do. And personally, my standards in my life, in all the areas that really help me to thrive, that really matter to me, those standards are fucking high. And I set them there for a reason. I don't want average standards. And by no means do I want low standards, right? So you have to determine that for yourself. What does high even mean to you? Like, what are your standards? I appreciate having standards that keep me showing up with full integrity, with everything I fucking got, with the highest level of personal accountability, self-honesty, right? That's what, for me, having high standards in all these different areas does for me. And that is going to affect, and does affect, my behaviors that then influence my habits, my daily habits, right? So let me just draw out the picture here. Getting clear on your core values is going to help to determine the standards at which you live by, which then influence your behaviors that absolutely shape your habits. So that piece right there is so crucial to get clear on. And when you get clear on all of this and you can witness the consistency in how you show up to uphold your values, to uphold those standards, to uphold yourself to those standards, to be consistent with your behaviors that shape these habits that are actually helping you thrive in your life in the ways that you want to, that matter to you, there's no fucking way you're not going to respect yourself. And it's not about perfection here at all. It's about intention and effort. Yeah, you want results too, right? Like and you should be able to, when you are showing up consistently with intention and strong effort, there's no way you're not going to make effort in the ways that matter to you, right? But just to be very clear, like this is not about perfect. This is about Are you clear on what matters to you? Are you showing up with deep intention and effort, like real respectable effort to live up to all of that matters to you? If the answer to that is yes, then you are going to be living with more respect for yourself, more reverence for yourself. It feels fucking good. It feels good for me to, it's like a holiday weekend over here right now. It's hot as fuck. And I love it, I could easily be kind of more relaxed about everything. I could be. What am I doing though? I'm still getting up in the morning and I'm fucking hitting my sprints in 90-degree weather. And, I got my, work shit being worked out. Like I'm still in the game with myself, right? Because why? Because I'm clear on my values. I'm clear on my mission. My standards are my standards. My behaviors and my habits, they're fucking locked in, right? And when I can watch myself in the process of all of this of my life, again, it's that zoom out that's constantly happening. It's really easy for me to respect myself, even on days where I feel like I missed the mark. This is important to move into. It's so easy to be an asshole to yourself when you feel like you messed up, you missed the mark, you failed, you didn't show up in the way that you wanted to. It's really, really easy to be an asshole to yourself. But I'm going to tell you right now that being an asshole to yourself, first of all, it doesn't give you anything of value. Like it literally does nothing for you. That's good. That's positive. That's supportive. It 1000% tears at your self-respect. You're being an asshole to yourself. Let's not confuse being an asshole to yourself as being someone who's honest with themselves and has the ability in moments where maybe you didn't show up the way that you intended to, you wanted to, Annie, and all of that, and be able to say like, hey, what happened here? And have an honest conversation with yourself and be able to put yourself in this place where it's like, hey, we're not going to accept this. Like have that sort of hard conversation with yourself. That's not being an asshole to yourself, right? That's having an honest, respectable conversation with yourself. Being an asshole to yourself, though, this just puts you in the guilt and shame cycle. It literally does nothing for you. It certainly tears at any of your self-respect. And it takes you in the exact opposite direction that you want to be moving in. So when we think about self-respect and we think about, really at any point of our life, we don't want to talk to ourselves and direct behaviors towards ourselves where we're essentially being an asshole to ourselves and we are belittling ourselves, we're tearing ourselves down. We don't want to do that. I certainly, again, in my 20s, when I say I speak on experience, I know that I've directed that energy towards myself. I have been an asshole to myself in my 20s. Gratefully, it was a long time ago. And gratefully, I experienced it to be able to now tell you with tons and tons of years behind me on the opposite end of that, to say that shit don't work. It doesn't do anything that's going to help you feel not just better about yourself, but also to help you progress in the ways that you want. So yeah, if there's something that you've done or experienced that you've brought onto yourself that you don't appreciate, that you don't want to continue, awesome. Have a real conversation with yourself. Be honest with yourself. Do the work that you need to do to figure out what needs to change, but just take out the fucking asshole part of it, because ultimately too, that's like victim shit. It's like, that's the victim mentality, like put your head down. Woe is me. It's like, no, keep your head up, look at your fucking self in the eyes, ask yourself why you got there, how you got there, and ask because you want to know how to not be there again. Not like you're putting yourself in a corner, like you're fucking go to your room. You know what I mean? So I laugh at myself all the time. That's important, especially when we're having like, passionate conversations like this with ourselves. You got to be able to like just have a moment where you can laugh at yourself too. So back on track to the self-respect building part. Here is a very, very important piece to cultivating more self-respect. This part here. So we went through standards, we went through behaviors, habits, right? Core values, standards, behaviors, habits. And then here's like in track and relay, the anchor. The anchor is the bad motherfucker at the end that's going to get you across the finish line. Boundaries. Boundaries. You have to have clear, strong, enforced boundaries. Boundaries is a huge subject. I have a course on boundaries, actually. I'll put a link to that in the show notes. There are many territories of boundaries, right? Psychological boundaries, physical boundaries, personal asset boundaries. So that it's a big, big conversation. But without having to go through every territory, to keep this super simple, you just got to know that you got to know your boundaries. You have to sense where, like a line in any area of your life where what you need to operate and feel at your highest level, your most optimal, your safest, your most secure, where you are thriving. That line in any zone of your life, when something steps over that line, including your own behaviors, there needs to be a fucking alarm that goes off that makes, the intruder, including yourself again, check themselves, like take a step back, right? You need to be the person to enforce that move. And when I say yourself, I'll give you an example. If you know that you need to get up early because you have a big day tomorrow that you need to perform on a very high level, starting from the gym to your work, to your, whatever, social commitments, whatever it is, you need to have a boundary on yourself with your Netflix at night, if that's what you're into, whatever. You go to bed, right? You create that boundary for yourself. And again, apply this to anywhere: your money, your finances, your health, your relationships, your business, like whatever it is, or even obviously, if there's somebody who's presenting some kind of someone who's just fucking basically getting too close and you're not asking them to get close to you, that's also a boundary that has to be enforced. And that's a little trickier because I know that could be very scary and difficult, but still, you know what? All boundaries can be hard to enforce. And that's why this piece is so important, because if you don't have boundaries, you're that person who gets walked over. You're that person who just always is running into, just like has like constant fucking drama in their life, or is constantly in harm, or is unhealthy, or all of the above. Boundaries are there to help you thrive, to keep your vitality strong, to keep you literally safe, right? But you have to be the one to be very clear on what your boundaries are, such that when the alarm goes off because somebody, including self, stepped over that line in your boundaries, that you're aware of it and that you can do what is necessary to make sure that that's not going to happen, right? To troubleshoot that issue, right? So, and in the act of doing that, first of all, in just knowing what your boundaries are, and then of course, being able to enforce them, you absolutely are cultivating more respect for yourself. I mean, to have boundaries just as is, like, period, is saying to yourself, I respect you. I respect myself, so I have these boundaries. That's how tightly woven respect and boundaries are. So it's really, really important to get very clear, and not just the idea of a boundary, but you need to know that you're going to pull the trigger. Like, you can enforce the boundary when you need to, when it's important. And the more you do this, the more that you witness yourself doing this, the more that this practice becomes stronger and stronger, you're going to become a black belt with your self-respect. And that's the goal, is how do we become a black belt with self-respect? Because to tie this all up again, and this is so important, you might be someone actually, who has a hard time loving themselves. This is a really interesting point coming through right now. You might be someone who has a hard time showing yourself love. But maybe something in what I just shared here, maybe it's not so hard for you or not as hard for you to be more disciplined with how you show up to your work, to your health, to your life. So you create these sort of standards and these behaviors and these habits that you're actually able to be very consistent with. What you are doing is building more self-respect. And what you might not be aware of, but eventually you will get there, is you'll realize that that is self-love, that you are loving yourself. This is absolutely the actions of someone who loves themselves. Even if you can't categorize it in that way yet, I promise you that this is self-love. Self-love is not just soft and, like do all the things that like just feel yummy all the time. No, self-love is this shit that I'm talking about right here, right? So self-respect it's this combination of discipline. It's standing in ownership of who you truly are. It's getting clear on what really matters to you. It's showing up in all the ways that you need to show up to keep what matters to you in healthy form. It's being willing and not afraid and mentally strong enough to enforce any boundaries, every boundary that needs to be enforced to uphold your well-being in every aspect of your life, right? And it's ultimately you saying to yourself that your word, your word matters to you. When you say you're going to do something, you do it. You're a person of integrity. This is not about perfection. There's going to be fucking mess ups. There's going to be flops. There's going to be like, oh, I dropped the ball on that. Of course, we all fucking drop the ball. How do you manage that moment though? When you drop the ball, are you an asshole to yourself? Do you just completely fall out of the game and become someone who doesn't, carry through, No. In fact, that's a beautiful opportunity for you to show yourself more self-respect, more respect. So respect is such an important, when I was thinking about this episode, I'm like, oh God, how are you going to pull this all together, in a small amount of time? Because it really is such a big subject, but it's such an important attribute and quality that whether you're someone who's already functioning with, if you're already a fucking black belt, self-respect, awesome. If you're someone who really has been struggling with this, I hope that some part of what I've shared here today with you has crawled into your psychology in a loving way to help you move in this direction where you are going to, and now I'm just running with this theme, become a black belt. But hey, you know what? To become a black belt in jiu-jitsu anyways, that's my, discipline of martial art. We have to be a white belt first. You got to get stripes on those belt. Then you got to become a blue belt and you got to get those stripes. Then you got to be a purple belt. You got to get those stripes and then brown belt, those stripes before you can get to a black belt. So my point in saying that is that no one jumps from white to black, right? It's a fucking practice. And how beautiful is that, right? Because in the practice, we're always given an opportunity to get better, to strengthen. And sometimes the getting better part comes as a result of a mess up, a slip up, a missing the mark. So while I'm talking about something that's so honorable as self-respect is, I think it's really important to remind all of us here that this is not about perfection. And this is not about, just fucking hitting the bullseye every single time. This is about being aware of what matters to you, why it matters to you, and then showing up to do the work in every way that you need to to make sure that this thing that matters to you, this thing we're calling self-respect in this episode, is thriving in your life, that you're actually moving up, the belts and the stripes to become a black belt. And even when you're a black belt in self-respect, it doesn't stop there, because life is going to continue to give you opportunities to show yourself how much do you really respect yourself. And every time that opportunity comes up, you have a choice of how you want to show up, and show yourself that. But I can tell you as I close this out, if you want more self-confidence, if you want to trust yourself more, if you want to be someone that really embodies more self-love, then this piece, this self-respect piece, has to be so fucking important to you. It has to matter to you. So, in summary, authenticity over fucking everything, always over here. Number 2, be of your fucking word. It has to matter to you. Your word has to matter to you. You are your own audience, not just the performer, the director, and writing your story. You are actually the audience too. So make sure that, you're following through on your word. Know what your core values are. Your values are going to dictate, they're going to influence your standards, your behaviors, your habits. Have strong boundaries and be clear on them and enforce them wherever and whenever you need to. And don't be an asshole to yourself. Self-compassion is a high performance tool in my book, and it allows you to be a human, to live in the practice of everything that I'm sharing so that you can move into black belt status, black belt, self-respect, a black belt in self-respect. Pretty cool. I hope that, I'd love to know, actually. I'd love to hear from you if any of this really hit you where you needed it today. YouTube comments, love seeing your words there. Instagram, Roxy Look. You can DM me. What else? Rating and review. If you can give this podcast a 5-star rating and review, we would love you for it. Me and my team. We are so grateful for every single review and rating that comes in. It means so much to us, and it really does help this show grow. So I'm signing out with so much love and respect. Go get that black belt. See you in the next one. To all my tender savages, to all you self-lovers, to all you magnetic badasses who are showing up every day authentically, courageously, who refuse to play small, I'm so excited to introduce our new lifestyle brand, La Rowan Paw, because we designed it just for you. Who's we? We is my work wife / wingwoman / badass graphic artist, Paulina Stewart. Every design is a culmination of deep intention, love, fire, magic, heart, and soul brought to life through my writing and Paulina's graphic work. Because we are so intentional about every single statement, every design, we only drop one design a month. We want you to live it. We want you to feel the essence and the frequency of every design because they are so powerful, like you. So check it out, larowanpaw.com. It's in the show notes. The new drop is so sick, and I cannot wait to see all of you wearing it. You get a variety of products to choose from in each drop. So wear it on your head, hat. You can get socks. You can wear a hoodie. You can hang it on your wall. Whatever you end up doing, please do let us know by sharing it on your socials and your stories. Tag at Roxy Look, tag La Rowan Paw, and we will reshare the powerful, magnetic, badass beauty that you are. larowanpaw.com.